Well, I guess you've all heard by now what exactly happened earlier today with the Deshaun Watson situation involving the Cleveland Browns and their controversial quarterback who is still yet to play a regular season game and quite honestly only played 3 series in a preseason game over the weekend. And more on that here in a little bit. But welcome to a special live edition of the Sports Note. We actually just posted a video within the last maybe 20 minutes on our normal Sports Note blog for the week. This is a special live edition. My partner Mike Martinez and I will probably put a nice little bow on this for the next Wise Guy Sports Show, which will probably be coming up in early September, which will be perfect because it'll be right in time for the start, of the NFL regular season. We're not really planning on doing a whole lot of NFL this year because of just how bad of a taste this has left in our mouth. For any of you living under a rock, back in April, the Cleveland Browns traded for Deshaun Watson, giving up 3 first-round picks, a third-round pick, and a fourth-round pick in future years. And then only after Watson said that the Browns were not on his list of teams to request a trade to, then the Browns turned around and said that we'll give you a 5-year contract worth $230 million. And then Watson said, sure, I'll come and play, in a place that starts snowing in some years as early as the end of October or early November. And try and help turn that franchise around. Never mind that I sexually harassed or borderline assaulted 24, if not 26 women. And in the weeks and months after that, he's settled with 23 out of the 24. Just a little over a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, was handed down a finalization suspension by independent judge and arbitrator Sue Robinson, and was given 5 games and no fine, although the final report indicated that it was predatory behavior. And the only reason it wasn't more is because there was no previous precedent for something like this. The Ray Rice situation basically wrote itself. They've never had somebody commit, or at least of this caliber, commit an offense like this that was a non-violent act. So that's why he only got 6 games, and he's only slated to make $1 million in the first year of that contract. So he was expected to be back in time for the Browns' Week 7 game against the Baltimore Ravens, which was going to be on national TV, followed up immediately thereafter against the defending AFC champion Cincinnati Bengals, which again was also going to be on national TV. Now plans have changed. It has now been ruled after the appeals process that Watson had his suspension increased from 6 games to 11 games and was also fined $5 million, which means Watson will not return until Week 13 because the Browns' bye week is Week 12. Oh, yeah, against the Houston Texans. Coincidence much? Considering the last I remember, the NFL is still looking into potential misconduct by the Texans for enabling this. It's not the full year that myself and Mike, and we've also been talking a lot with Natalie Turk from Sports Illustrated, who we are trying to actually get on the Wise Guys Sports Show very, very soon, but with her other commitments. It's just not worked out, but we certainly hope to have that before too long. We've also been, this is actually a sentiment that's also been reiterated by a lot of Browns fans, and herein lies the problem. The situation is pretty much over, done with, and put to bed, and the fan base has never really been more divided. There's a lot of people out there who say, yeah, we got our top 5 quarterback. Sure, we can actually let him go for the majority of the season. And then if we can actually, play marginally and maybe still have a, shot knocking on the playoffs, maybe he can come back and we can actually get a playoff spot, the last 5-6 games of the season, or blow up the 2022 season and then hit the ground running in 2023. Then there's other people who find his behavior so egregious that they were actually hoping for the full year and a larger fine. And then there's even a few people out there who are hoping that the last case that has not been settled, more evidence keeps coming out to where something could potentially be pursued and added on to. And there's a pretty good contingency of that of that third demographic that is hoping that it's so egregious that the Browns and the NFL have no choice but to terminate the contract, which means the Browns then don't have their franchise quarterback. They are sure they get the money. They could try and recoup some of that money, but it's $230 million guaranteed, and they still don't have any draft capital in the first round for the next couple of years. So there goes your opportunity to go out there and get a franchise quarterback to rebuild and start over with. And oh yeah, you're still going to have to figure out what you're going to do with some of the salaries after you basically broke the bank to overpay David Njoku. You broke the bank to overpay Denzel Hospital Ward with an extension. Myles Garrett could be tired of all this and possibly want to walk. And then you overpaid for, in my philosophy, you overpaid for Amari Cooper. And this is not a Deshaun Watson versus Baker Mayfield scenario that Baker is going to be out there in starting in week 1, and Deshaun won't even be allowed back into the facility until the middle of November. And just, again, the similarities that now that Baker wears 6, Watson's original suspension was 6. Watson has as many playoff wins as the guy he replaced. And he's also and Mike and I have brought this up a multitude of times on the Wise Guy Show, that he is no better than a 500 quarterback when he's not playing inside a dome or climate controlled arena, stadium like he had in Houston during home games. He's only played a handful of games above Mason Dixon, and he's only played 2, maybe 3 games in terrible, winter weather, and he was abysmal in all of them. And this is who, the Browns fan base wants to hang their hat on. So I can understand certain Browns fans who are saying, okay, he's our quarterback, we're going to ride with him. They can't forgive the action, but they respect the attributes of the player. It's kind of like those in Buffalo who had the same mindset with O.J. Simpson. Let's be completely honest. You can't argue the fact that Simpson was a Hall of Fame running back and the greatest running back in the history of the Bills franchise, but you also cannot put Brentwood in Las Vegas out of your mind when talking about Simpson, the person. Again, separating the two. This is something that's going to stay with Watson from now until the day, quite honestly, he dies. This is always going to be a part of him. It was the same thing with Ben Roethlisberger. It's something that always hung around with him. Same thing with Ray Rice. Same thing with Ray Lewis. It's, yes, their actions on the field are going to little by little start to diminish the personal improprieties in their character, but it's never going to completely wash it away. And for those who kind of keep tabs on current events and are the casual sports fan, certainly not you or I, namely me, it's something that we're always going to have on the forefront. We're always going to remember how great of a player they were, but it's going to be a little bit more intense with us because we're always going to have that argument. And now you're going to see a lot of people who were maybe on the fence about this in Browns Nation. They're going to start now trying to pick a side now that they know exactly what it is, that the fact that he's now going to be gone for the majority of the season, and whatever comes out with that, with that 24th and final case, could this continue? Could this escalate even further? What are the Browns doing at this point? They don't have any first round capital. Do they also go out now that they've got all this salary cap room? Because again, Watson was only slated to make $1 million this year. Do they actually go out and try and actually make a deal with the San Francisco 49ers to get Jimmy Garoppolo? Because the 49ers want to actually put Trey Lance in as their starting quarterback and try and develop him. They don't want to go the Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers route. They don't want to actually go with they don't want to hang on to the veteran because they've got this top 5 kid sitting in the wings. With the Jets, they had Darnold. They knew Darnold wasn't working out. They go and get Zach Wilson, and they're hoping Zach Wilson turns the corner here with that franchise. And Darnold is going to be competing with Mayfield for the starting job down in Carolina. And the Panthers really right now we're going nowhere. But I will say this much: if Mayfield, lights up and balls out, there's a possibility Carolina could steal that division because Tom Brady, even though he's Tom Brady, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are getting old. And no other team in that division really is a threat because Atlanta and New Orleans have moderate at best quarterback play. They've got veterans out there, but you don't know what you're going to be able to get out of those guys year in and year out. The Browns right now have just gone the Browns again. And the only good thing about it is that it gives the front office one more year to figure out how to fix the mess that they actually created in the first place. When they put that front office together, Andrew Berry set the world on fire with the guys that he went out and brought in and got and they were salivating over the opportunity to hire Kevin Stefanski as their coach, is the fact that he had been passed up by so many other teams before, and you knew he was going to be the next assistant to make it big. And he did, and he got the franchise to their first playoff season in over 20 years. He got them their first playoff win in 25 years, even though he was sitting home with COVID. But he was the one that came up with the game plan that initiated, and he also had them that close to getting to the AFC Championship game the following week. Then he goes out, then they go out and they lay an egg last year, but their starting quarterback was hurt. Their star wide receiver turned back into the same prima donna that basically forced his way out of New York to begin with, and then he goes to Los Angeles and wins a Super Bowl. And had he not torn his ACL, torn that same knee that actually kept him out, the first year that the Browns acquired him, would have actually ripped the Super Bowl MVP away from Cooper Kupp without a doubt. And that game would not have been nearly as close as it was, especially in the second half, because it was, as we all remember, it was something where they were going to throw the ball at Cooper Kupp as many times as possible, and Cincinnati just couldn't do anything to stop it. Well, what would have happened if you would have had Odell Beckham Jr. out there to open up and go down the field, as they already saw that he actually got behind, that he burned the secondary for a touchdown early on in that game. But finally, the Deshaun Watson saga is over in terms of we now know what the suspension is. We now know what the fine is. But the irony is that he's accepted the punishment, but he's also still maintained his innocence throughout the whole thing. Then why would you settle? And the comments made by Jimmy and Dee Haslam, the principal owners of the Browns, the problem is with those two, this every time they open their mouth, it actually just digs a deeper and deeper and deeper hole. And Haslam even had the audacity to say that we're about giving guys second chances. We gave Kareem Hunt a second chance, and look at how that worked out. Kareem Hunt beat the hell out of a woman in an elevator. Now, there's a lot of people out there that say, Hunt initiated that. Some say it was retaliatory. But what Watson did was all self-inflicted. And sure, you're paying a guy $230 million, basically with the contract that you gave him. You gave him the money to pay off these women for the egregious acts that he committed. And now you're going to let the guy you're going to basically give your franchise quarterback a pass. I'm not exactly saying that the ownership's going to say, "Oh yeah, he's a scumbag. It's we don't want to see him. Sure, he's under contract for the next 5 years, but we could care less about what he does now with these 11 weeks off." And the fact that they also shut him down for the Browns' final 2 preseason games, which actually means after missing all of last year with a torn ACL, and the fact that he's also going to be missing not only 2 preseason games, but 11 games. He's not going to have stepped out onto a football field for competitive football with the exception of 3 series this past weekend. He'll have played 3 series and thrown 7 passes over the course of 19 to 20 months by the time he suits up against the Texans in week 13. And this is how you want to bank your franchise and possibly get yourself back to relevance. There's a lot of Browns fans out there that would rather take a losing season than win a Super Bowl with this guy. I am one of them. I am proud to say I am one of them. I would have a lot more respectability if Garoppolo came in and balled out. I don't think Jacoby Brissett's going to be the answer. It's going to be marginal at best. And wouldn't it be absolutely hilarious if they go out there and ball out their 7-4, 8-3, 9-2, whatever, and then Watson comes back, stinks up the joint, and they've got to make a quarterback change, and Garoppolo or Brissett gets them into the playoffs, or possibly even takes them with a ride, and basically it's Johnny Manziel, Brian Hoyer all over again. You're paying Watson all this money, but he's not the answer. It was the same thing. Hoyer had the Browns at 7-4. Then the ownership forces their hand, makes the move to Manziel, and the whole thing falls apart. And Hoyer actually goes on and plays, fairly well as Tom Brady's backup. And Manziel is out of football in less than 3 years, playing in the fan-controlled league for whatever it's worth. But at the very least, we don't have to hear about this anymore. It's going to be so nice to be able to watch ESPN or CBS Sports HQ and listen to local sports talk radio and not have to hear about this once the season gets started. I mean, day in, day out, because that's all you've heard about the Browns right now. Now they can actually take this and push past it here in a couple of weeks once the regular season gets going, and we're going to hear, just get us by until Deshaun gets back, and then let's see, what happens. But he's not going to be controlling 80 to 90% of the narrative for what he's done. It's going to be how are they going to hold up until he gets back. And now the other topic that they can shift to is who's going to make it out of camp. Let's also be honest, with all of their injuries in training camp, they are one Amari Cooper injury away from having basically a roster full of practice squad guys in their receiving core. There's also rumors out there that they are listening to an offer from the Buffalo Bills for Kareem Hunt, because the Bills do not have a pass catching back and are not especially sold on Daryl Singletary. Hunt has shown when he's healthy, he could still deliver. The Browns will still be able to run Dearness Johnson and Nick Chubb, and Chubb is still one of the top two, if not at the worst, three backs in all of football. He commands that room. What happens with Demetric Felton? There was also another guy that they went out and they drafted, in the mid round, that they're hoping can develop the way that Felton and Johnson did. With the fact that they weren't prized possessions coming out of college, they were mid-round picks. They weren't expected to compete for starting jobs. Dearness Johnson came in and played exceptionally well when the Browns were absolutely crushed with injuries and the COVID bug midway through the season. We all saw what he actually did in prime time in a game last year. But the Browns are certainly not out of the water, and let's see what happens with Hunt. But I'll tell you this much: if they do pull the trigger on that, if they do trade and grab Garoppolo, it'd be a nice pickup for them. But if they do end up flipping Kareem Hunt to the Buffalo Bills and hopefully get something back for him of value, possibly replenishing some of the draft picks that you sold off to Houston to get Watson, you can almost put Buffalo's name on the Lombardi Trophy to begin with, because then they're going to have a top 5 quarterback, and there's no argument that Josh Allen is one of those. They're going to have the best receiver in the game in Stephon Diggs, and a top 10 tight end in Dawson Knox. They're going to have a top 10 offensive line. They're going to have a top 5 defense. They're going to have a top 10 kicker. And oh yeah, they've got Matt Araiza, aka Punt God, as a rookie right now, who hit an 82-yard bomb in a preseason game, who can flip the field on a dime. Even if he actually ends up going to the practice squad, I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if they kept Matt Araiza around for kickoffs and field goals as a backup. With Brandon Bass is good, but when you've got Araiza with the ability to kick 60, 70 yards without honestly blinking an eye, maybe it's something that you kick the tires on. But let's see what happens these next couple of weeks. But I am so glad that this saga is finally over, because now at this point, we can go back to not caring about the preseason, just making sure that nobody gets hurt, gear up for the opener for those who are actually going to care. And it also now puts a little bit more focus on the Cleveland Guardians, who, are in first place and have a chance to really stretch that lead out over the course of the last 6 weeks of the regular season. And hey, the Cleveland Cavaliers are starting up very, very soon as well, and should be making the playoffs as well. So hopefully this is soured. This is the final straw that soured the taste in the mouths of a lot of Browns fans, and maybe start getting them to focus in on some of the other teams in this town who are going to be a lot more successful and have a lot more longevity and have a lot more character while doing it. So let me know what you guys think down below. Again, we posted a video just about 35 minutes ago on the Texas Rangers, and the next episode of the Wise Guy Sports Show is going to be the week after Labor Day. Mike and I are also probably going to end up doing a quick hitter Labor Day weekend for the Ohio State Notre Dame season opener, and then the 1-year anniversary show of the Wise Guy Sports Show itself. That's going to take place in October, which will officially be our 1 year, our soft open, or our pilot episode was the high school reunion Labor Day weekend last year. We decided towards the end of the broadcast on Saturday night that we're just going to do it in October, and we hope to see all of you guys then. So take care, and everyone stay safe.